Welcome to episode 433 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing Philip Todd. He is a Scottish filmmaker who just did a family film based loosely on an old Scottish myth about a girl who meets an elf in the woods, and he turned it into a modern day retelling of this Scottish myth in his new film, Jessie and the Elf Boy. We talked through his writing process. He really likes using old Scottish mythology in his screenplays and turning them into sort of modern day adaptations of those. So we talked through that process a little bit, as well as we talked through his process of just getting this script once it was written, produced. So stay tuned for that interview. SYS's six-figure screenplay contest is open for submissions. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. Our regular deadline is May 31st. If your script is ready, definitely submit now to save money. We're looking for both shorts and features. I'm defining low budget as less than six figures. In other words, could this script be produced for less than $1 million US? We've got lots of industry judges reading the scripts in the later rounds. We're giving away thousands in cash and prizes. This year we have a short film category as well, 30 pages or less. So if you have a low budget short script, by all means submit that as well. I've got a number of industry judge producers who are looking for short scripts. So hopefully we can find a home for some of these short scripts. If you want to submit to the contest or learn more about it, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. Also, this year we're running an in-person film festival in tandem with our screenplay contest. It's for low-budget films produced for less than $1 million US. We have a features and shorts category, and again, we have lots of industry judges who will be helping with the judging of the films. The festival is going to take place in Hollywood, California from October 7th to 9th. If you produce a short film or know someone who has, by all means, please do submit it. Same thing with features. The shorts are very, very easy for me to program. I can run 2 or 3 or even 4 shorts before a feature film. So we can do a whole, or we could potentially do a whole section of shorts. So I'm going to be accepting a lot of shorts into the festival. Again, we definitely have a festival. We definitely have a feature film category as well. But, we're only doing it for 1 weekend. So there is sort of a finite number of features that we can screen. I'm thinking we'll probably screen about 8 to 10 features, and then just we'll be screening lots and lots of shorts, just depending where we can fit them in. But again, if we screen 8 features, that will probably give us plenty of time to screen 10, 20, 30 shorts. If you have a finished film and would like to submit to the festival, you can go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/festival. And also you will see us on Film Freeway, which is actually where we're taking all of the submissions. There's some complexities to actually taking film submissions, so everything is going through Film Freeway as far as the film festival is concerned. You can, of course, submit to the contest through sellingyourscreenplay.com/contest. But if you're on Film Freeway, definitely look us up, and it's called SYS's Six-Figure Film Festival and Screenplay Contest. And again, you can find us on Film Freeway and submit there if you do have a finished film. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes, or leaving a comment on YouTube, or retweeting the podcast on Twitter, or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I'll also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast. And then just look for episode number 433. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter, and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So just a couple of quick words about what I have been working on over the last week or so. I'm still plugging away, trying to get ready for this large NFT project that I'm working on that will be a part of the Rideshare Killer. I've got almost all of it figured out. I know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, but it could take me another month or so to actually execute. So hopefully I'll have an announcement on that soon. Nothing new to report with The Rideshare Killer. It's still available on Amazon and Tubi TV if you want to check that out. We're still waiting to get our first revenue report from Indie Rights. Hopefully that will be coming soon. But we're definitely seeing some reviews now on Amazon. So people are definitely finding the movie, and we're starting to get some reviews. We've been getting submissions for the contest and the festival. So I've been looking at those and starting to watch some of those movies and read some of those scripts. Some of the early round readers have already found some of the highly rated scripts. So I'm starting to prepare and look through those and get some of those out to the industry judges. It's always interesting getting the reaction from industry judges. At this point, I'm starting to get to know a lot of these industry judges. I've been working with them now for, this is the third year of the contest. So I've been working with them now for 3 years. Many of them I've known, longer than that. So I'm kind of getting to know what they're looking for, what they're interested in, what sort of material they like. And hopefully that will continue over the years. And then hopefully we can really match some of these scripts. I really find with these contest scripts, I get to know them. Obviously, I'm reading a lot of them, reading partials of a lot of them, reading log lines, and just sorting through them, sending them to the producers. I get sort of familiar with them. Certainly the top scripts, I get very familiar. I produce the budget list at the end of the year where I sort of promote the quarterfinalists and up of the contest. So again, I sort of get familiar with them, and I actually have producers coming to me and asking me for scripts, and that's actually an easy way that I've been able to recommend some scripts. And I have a writer coming on the podcast, if not next week, in the next couple of weeks, who entered her script into the contest and ended up, again, I got a producer. This was months, if not a year later, just asking for some writing samples, and she ended up, because it was one of these contest scripts I recommended, I remembered it. It was what this producer was looking for, and so I'm going to have her on and to sort of tell her story. It'll be interesting just to sort of hear how it went from my perspective. I'm always curious about these things, but once again, if you do have a low budget script and want to submit it to the contest, now is definitely the time, because as I said, the final deadline is July 31st, but the regular deadline is May 31st. So if you submit before then, you definitely will save some money. Anyways, those are the things that I've been working on over the last week or so. Let's get into the main segment. Today, I am interviewing Scottish filmmaker Philip Todd. Here is the interview. Welcome, Philip, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Well, I grew up in Fife for the first 10 years of my life, which is just a corner of Scotland, just on the east coast. And when I was younger, I really wanted to join the police, but then my life kind of took this big turn when I saw the Lord of the Rings movies. So they have a lot to answer for in terms of my own life story. But basically at that point, I kind of, made the decision that I really wanted to be a filmmaker. And then I went to the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, which is a kind of acting school and music school and film school in Glasgow in Scotland. It's got some quite prestigious graduates, people like James McAvoy, Billy Boyd, and David Tennant. These sort of big actors have done the acting course there. So I did the film course at that school, and that was kind of the beginning of the journey for me. I also went to London for a bit, did some acting. I did an acting degree in London, and then from that point on, I started making films, making short films. Editing was my kind of main work at that point, and then I set up a production company to start making feature films.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about that journey a little bit. You mentioned once you got out of college, you started to do some acting, you started to do some shorts. What were some of your first professional experience? Did you get cast as an actor? You started to make some money that way. Were you able to get some editing gigs, and how did you get those editing gigs?
Yeah, I did a mixture. So I stayed in London for a little bit to sort of pursue the acting. And I guess my original thinking was, well, maybe I'll just go for the acting, and then later on, I'll switch over to actually making films and to kind of behind the camera stuff. But for me, acting was always just a step towards directing. That I knew that ultimately I wanted to be behind the camera, kind of actually telling stories. That was kind of what I was really excited about. But for me, acting was about learning how do you actually get a good performance? How do you speak to actors and understand that whole process of how to direct? So yeah, I did a bit of. I had quite a few gigs of acting once I got out. Nothing major in screen. It was a lot more kind of theatre stuff, and I did that for a little while. But ultimately, I couldn't justify living in London. It was too expensive at the end of the day. So I ended up moving back to Scotland, and it was at that point that I just really started to feel the urge to go back to actually making films and doing the behind the camera stuff. So I did work freelance in editing for a while, and a lot of that work came from really just word of mouth. I wasn't seeking it massively, but just because people had projects that they needed edited, I had that skill set, so I was kind of getting those opportunities coming along, and so that's kind of what ultimately segued into the production side of things.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, as someone who went to London and then back to Glasgow, I'm in Los Angeles, so,
yeah.
Probably somewhat equivalent to something like London, just in terms of the scene. How did you find the scene in a place like London? Is it a lot more competitive? Do you find you're a big fish? I guess in Glasgow, you're a bigger fish in a smaller pond. You're a smaller fish in a bigger pond. How did you sort of find that difference in terms of just breaking into the industry? Would you recommend a smaller, pond to kind of get some credits, or would you recommend just jumping into the deep end of the pool in something like London or LA?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and certainly in the UK, it's traditionally been very London centric, and if you want the opportunities, often you have to kind of go there, and I don't know. I think that's maybe changing now because there's some other studio spaces popping up in various places in the UK, which means that I think it's not quite, London doesn't have the monopoly in quite the same way. But yeah, I certainly had the sense of, there's lots going on, but there's also everyone's here, everyone's looking for the same opportunities. So you do feel like a very small fish in a big pond in that sense. But also for me, being Scottish and also the work that I do is very linked to my kind of heritage and Scottish kind of mythology and such like. So for me, I was quite keen to just be based in Scotland and try and just sort of make something happen there. And yeah, I guess because it's a smaller pond, then in that sense, maybe you can make slightly bigger waves.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So let's dig into your latest feature film, Jessie and the Elf Boy. To start out, maybe you can give us a quick pitch or logline. What is this film all about?
Well, it's actually inspired by a Scottish legend, which is about this forest elf called Gilly Doo. And really all that there is to the legend is that Gilly Doo meets a girl who gets lost in his forest, and he shows her the way home. And that's kind of all there is to it. But what we did is we took that legend as like the kind of prologue, if you like, to a film, and thought, well, what if then years later Gilly Doo, this elf boy, goes searching for this girl, finds Jessie in the city. She's now working in a hair salon, and they end up forming this kind of like fun partnership where he has this talent for hairstyling, and they kind of rocket to fame together. And so, yeah, that was kind of where the idea came from. And the idea is that it's a sort of fun, family-friendly film that the whole family can sit down and watch together. And there's sort of some laughs in there and also some kind of an emotional core to it as well.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned this Scottish folklore. Was this something that was always something you heard about? People in Scotland just know this fable. Where does that sort of fit in? How did you hear about it, or how did you get involved? How did you even think to turn this into a feature film?
Well, that's sort of my main area of interest, really, is looking at Scottish mythology and legends as a sort of resource, I guess, for stories, because I feel like it's largely untapped. And there's a lot in there which people aren't aware of. So I think the legend of Gilly Doo is something that probably your average Scottish person would not ever have heard of before. But I kind of, because I'm interested in that stuff, have sort of done a bit of digging and discovered it. But, there's a lot, and there are some legends that are kind of much more well-known, things like the Loch Ness Monster and other things like that, which are kind of more in people's minds. But I'm quite interested in sort of just going that one layer deeper and seeing what are the other stories that are around, that have been around for hundreds of years. And to me, there's something about that. If a story has sort of survived for that length of time, then there must be something in it that kind of resonates with humans at some level. And that's to me why legends and mythology and these sorts of things just really are very interesting to explore.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the actual writing of this screenplay. I noticed that there's 3 writing credits: yourself, Matthew Todd, and Lindsay Sterling. Maybe you can kind of just tell us, what did that actually look like? Did you guys get in the same room and come up with an outline and then divide up scenes? How did that collaboration actually function?
Sure. So Matthew is my brother, and then Lindsay is a good friend of ours. And so Lindsay is a writer in her own right. She also works as an archaeologist, but she's writing a series of fantasy novels for young adults. And so there's kind of a lot of crossover that we have with her in terms of our interests. And Matthew, I've kind of collaborated with him. He helped set up the production company that we have, and we've collaborated on pretty much all our projects so far. So that's kind of like a really just close working relationship that we have there. We sort of didn't really get together in person that much over the process. We were more on just Zoom calls, but really the way it worked was that I guess I would kind of present the initial bones of the story, like a sort of outline, and then we would discuss that and kind of flesh that out a bit more together. And then I would kind of go away, work on it a bit more, come back to them, and they would sort of feed in again. So I guess it was largely me doing the actual kind of like work of writing it and putting the words on the page, as it were. But then they were very much feeding in at every stage of the development of the story to kind of guide it and just maybe catch those problems that I wasn't seeing because I was a bit too close to it.
Gotcha. What does your writing schedule look like? Are you someone that writes in the morning, you write late at night, you write in the middle of the day? Do you go to Starbucks, you need that ambient noise? Just what does your actual writing routine look like?
It's difficult to say because I don't write that regularly. I kind of write in spurts whenever I've got a project which is at that stage where I feel, where it's like we need a script. So then I kind of sort of get down to it. But I have tried writing in cafes and things before, but to be honest, I probably just get distracted. I start people watching, and the stuff gets written, but just very, very slowly. So I think for me, I probably have to sort of lock myself away in a room and just kind of get my head down and bash stuff out. It's funny because I wouldn't really necessarily call myself a writer. I kind of write out of necessity because I need a script to be able to then direct and produce it. So it's kind of more of to me, sometimes the writing process isn't even that enjoyable. It's more just like something that needs to get done. But obviously there are those times as well where kind of you're in the zone and it's really enjoyable. But I think for me, the more fun part of it is actually the kind of story development stage where you're kind of coming up with all the story beats and figuring out who are these characters that you're kind of getting to know as you work on the script. And that to me is a really fun part of it, is as it's all starting to come together and you're seeing it materialize. And then, the script itself is more just a case of, we need something to then, a blueprint to then make this film. So then it's a kind of case of going more into the detail.
And how much time do you spend on each one of those? It sounds like you do quite a bit of outlining, and then going actually into final draft writing script pages. What does that break down to? And like just using Jessie and the Elf Boy as an example, how long did it take you the outline stage? How long did it take you the actual writing of the script stage?
Yeah, I guess, it's also kind of difficult to answer because this was an idea that we had sort of been floating around for quite a while. So there had been different iterations of this idea that had never quite made it into script form from like years ago. But I think probably once we really started seriously getting down to it, I mean, it was probably a process of really about 6 months, I would say, from the point of like seriously kind of outlining it and trying to get the story developed and then getting that first draft written. And then I really like to get as much feedback on things as possible. So then once we had that first draft, there was probably a period of quite, at least 2 or 3 months after that where I was sort of sending it out to people, trying to get feedback and sort of redraft it then to make it as strong as possible.
And who are these people you're sending it out to? Are they other writers? Are they producers? Who are these folks you're getting notes from?
Yeah, so some of them are well, so other filmmakers like that I've kind of come across and worked with, people that I know, know the kind of screenwriting craft, but also know me well enough that they won't kind of they'll sort of be able to like really put their finger on things in terms of what I'm trying to do, but also offer that kind of more objective feedback. So yeah, it's generally it's people I've kind of collaborated with in the past, and I really kind of trust their opinion and also trust their ability as a writer or story analyst, I guess.
Gotcha. And how do you approach screenplay structure? There's sort of the Blake Snyder, Sid Field, very much sort of a template with your 3 acts and your inciting incident stuff. There's more of an intuitive approach. A lot of the writers I have on seem to have more of an intuitive approach. What's your approach to screenplay structure?
Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy the Blake Schneider book, and that has been a big kind of that's probably what I base a lot of my process on. I guess as well, for each project it kind of changes a little bit. I don't know if I always do the same each time, because sometimes a story calls for a different approach, I think, and so I kind of like, to a degree, I like to go with the project a little bit in terms of where it feels like it's sort of leading me, if that kind of makes sense. But just sort of sound it out as I go, and then feel like, actually, you know what, this maybe requires going in a certain direction with it. But yeah, I mean, certainly the like Save the Cat kind of stuff, I've certainly used that as a kind of blueprint before for mapping out a rough structure. Yeah, it's the kind of thing, I guess, it's a good starting point, but then you kind of always want to be revisiting this. And, if there was a formula for writing screenplays, then I guess everyone would be doing it. But I think whilst there is formulaic elements to it, sometimes it's better to sort of, use that as a starting point, but then take a step back and then sort of go, well, it's that whole old expression, write from your heart and rewrite from your head. I think that kind of thing as well. Let your kind of heart lead you a little bit.
Yeah. Sound advice for sure. So how do you approach genre requirements? You mentioned this was a family film. Did you kind of know that it was going to be a family film going into it? And maybe you can just talk sort of more generally, what sort of makes it a family film, and what are some of these requirements that maybe a distributor or a producer might have if you're trying to write a family friendly film?
Yeah. So I guess it was like family and comedy was the two things that I kind of went into it with. It's like I wanted to make something that was going to be fun and lighthearted and yeah, like certainly family friendly. So I guess part of that was looking at just other comparable films and seeing, what's the tone that they set, how do they do that, and what's the kind of what kind of humor sort of is often used, and I guess a lot of the time it's more kind of, it's visual humor, it's kind of slapstick and stuff that's in there, but sometimes as well, I mean, Pixar, I've been a big fan of like the kind of classic Pixar films for quite a while, so they also have those sort of jokes that are in there more for the adults as well, that kind of maybe go over the heads of the kids a little bit, but just add that extra layer to it. So that was kind of, I guess, my approach with this, is I wanted to make something that, had that fun and kind of child friendly sort of content in it, but also there was a few, some stuff in there that would resonate more for adults as well. Like it's that thing of you want the kids and the parents or grandparents to watch it together, so you don't want one of those to be bored, ideally. So yeah, that was definitely always kind of in my mind from the outset with the script, and in terms of like the different things that are required for that genre, I guess it was again just thinking about what are the other comparable films, and also when you mentioned distributors, I guess also thinking like what is that audience looking for? What are those trailer moments going to be? What's the poster going to be? Those sorts of marketing things as well, also kind of to a degree inform that story right from the outset, I would say.
And I'm curious, why did you decide? Do you have just a love of family films? You have young kids. You wanted to bring them into your, so make something that they could watch. Why did you decide to do a family film? Like, what was sort of the motivation there? And I sort of asked this question to a lot of filmmakers, and I always wonder, is there some sort of business sense going on? Had you talked to a producer or a distributor saying, hey, family films are something we can sell, as opposed to, another, violent action film or something?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's a mixture, because there's certainly just a part of me. I mean, I guess because a film, as you'll know, like a film is such a labor of love, and it takes such a long time, that you've got to know that there's a part of that project that is just so like something you have to do, sort of thing. To have the stamina to get through it, you kind of really have to love it. So I think for me, those sorts of films, family films that you can watch again and again, and just always enjoy, that there's the kind of thing that would be on, you might want to all as a family sit down at Christmas time and watch, sort of thing. That those sorts of films are the kind of films I like to watch, along with other genres as well, but I do enjoy them. So I just that I guess was part of it. It was just, I want to make the kind of film that I want to watch, and that is kind of always a motivation. But there was a business side to it as well, which is that I don't see many independent family films being made in the UK. There's kind of like, Disney kind of has that monopoly on that genre, and I kind of feel like, well, that's fair enough, and obviously Disney have got the resources to kind of do that, but maybe people will also be looking for alternatives to that, and so offering something like that, I think there's a gap in the market there, and certainly that's what we're finding so far with Jessie and the Elf Boy, is that's kind of part of the appeal, is that there's nothing else quite in that space existing at the moment, as in terms of an independent family film from the UK. So yeah, that was part of it as well, is to try and meet that gap, I guess.
Gotcha. So you now have a script that you like. You guys polished this thing up. What were your next steps once you had the script that you were ready to take out? What were those next steps to actually getting this movie funded? Did you send it out to a bunch of contacts? Do you have an agent, a manager? Just talk us through that process of going from script to actually getting funded.
Yeah. So with this particular project, we had already kind of gathered some investors that were kind of behind the project even before we had the script written. So that was kind of based on I guess you could put together a sort of pitch deck type thing for the project, which you can use to sort of gather that interest in it. And then once you know that there's that sort of sufficient finance in place, then you kind of can go ahead. So that was kind of the way we approached this. So we already knew that there was enough there, provided we could be smart about it, to actually shoot the film. And then we also did a bit of crowdfunding as well. So we ran a campaign on Indiegogo to fund part of the post-production of the film as well. And yeah, so the financing was very kind of like, we had quite a lot of autonomy over that throughout the process, which was quite intentional, in the sense that we have had other projects that we've kind of gone down the more traditional route of sort of just shopping around for industry investors to kind of come on board, and that has we sort of tried and failed at that in the past, and been there's been kind of times where that has been kind of really quite difficult. I'm sure most filmmakers would have horror stories of like financing that was promised and then sort of didn't come through and things like that. So we were quite intentional with this one, that we wanted to keep it contained enough that we could actually kind of maintain that control, and we could sort of be the ones that were sort of bringing the finance, in a sense, to be able to then get it done.
Gotcha. So what does your pitch look like? You don't have a script yet, and you're trying to line up these investors. Who are these investors? Are they friends of friends? Are they people that you've worked with before on some of your other films? And what does your pitch actually look like to them, since you don't have an actual script yet? What does that sort of look like? And really, like, I know there's a lot of screenwriters out there looking, I'd like to raise money myself. So maybe you can kind of offer them some tips about how to approach investors. Yeah,
I mean, I think it's a great thing to do, because like, you learn so much from it. And I think the largely with this project, it's basically crowdfunded, but there's a mixture of like equity crowdfunding and then like more kind of donation crowdfunding. So what we have is like a sort of group of investors who are putting in equity to the film. And that is, I mean, that's a mixture. It's some friends and family. That's that's always a good place to start. But then other people that are just less kind of closely connected, but are kind of believe in us as a film company and what we're doing as filmmakers, and sort of are supporting that. And I think with investors, that I mean, ultimately, really, they're investing in you as a filmmaker primarily, and the project is kind of almost secondary. I mean, obviously it's important, but I think for most people, they want to know, can we trust you to actually deliver this and to finish it and then get it distributed and actually do something with it. So I think that's kind of the producer role at that stage, I would say, is to try and to show people that you're legit, that you're going to do this, it's going to happen, and also to kind of have that sort of business plan, I guess, around the project. So our previous film, which was called The Gaelic King, had sort of that experience to sort of kind of as our calling card, I guess, to say, well, look, we've done it once before. We know we can actually get a film made. We can get it out there, and so we're going to sort of do it again with this one. So that's I guess part of the pitch is just saying, like, this is who we are and this is our track record, and then the project is also then sort of just. I guess at that stage, it's just sort of sell the sizzle, as it were, in terms of it's going to be fun, it's going to be a family-friendly film. There's going to be some nice visuals, lots of laughs, and it's that sort of thing that I think people want to know at that stage, probably more so than like the minutia of what really happens in every page of the script.
Yeah. And so maybe a couple of quick tips for people that want to do a Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Just how did you get that? How did you build a following? How did you get people to donate to the Indiegogo?
Yes, because it's not easy, and I think often people fail at the first hurdle because they think it's just a case of you put it up there. It's like a build it and then they will come sort of mentality, which unfortunately is not the case. You really have to do a lot of the work before you launch, and it's about sort of growing that sort of base of people who are aware of the project and also kind of already excited to get to see it happen. So that, for us, what's worked well in the past is running our crowdfunding campaign after we've already shot the film, because by that point you've got a little bit of traction in terms of, like, you can promote it a little bit whilst you're shooting, but also you've got something to show. You can then put together a teaser trailer for the film. So then when people come across it, they're seeing basically a film. Like, they see that there's something here. It's actually almost ready to go. And then it's a lot more likely that they're going to, donate whatever to get their perk, and they know that that's likely they'll get that perk delivered. So that's what's worked well for us in the past, and I think it is possible still to run very successful crowdfunding campaigns, earlier in the process, for sure. But again, I think it's about building that crowd of people in advance who are already excited about it. And then trying to, so that when you actually launch, it's more like, people are already like banging at the door, wanting to kind of be involved and help make it happen.
Yeah, and have you tried that before, to do a Indiegogo or Kickstarter before you actually shot? Was this your first Indiegogo?
No, we've done plenty of crowdfunding in the past, and I think probably that's partly why we chose this method, because we learned from it in the past. I think probably it's something that we would happily do again. It's just, again, it's sort of trying to have those feelers out in advance to know what is the appetite like, and is it likely to be successful? Because I think so. The other thing about crowdfunding for me is that half of it is about raising the funds, but half of it is also about promoting the project, and it's actually really good marketing as well. It's a chance to get it out there and get it seen. And so with Jessie and the Elf Boy, it was actually through a crowdfunder that we ended up meeting Shackhead and then getting a distributor. So you kind of, I guess there's that side to it as well. So you don't want an unsuccessful crowdfunding campaign. You want it to be successful. You want it to really be a positive thing. So a lot of that is just about preparation and warming up that crowd in advance.
Gotcha. So I just like to wrap up the interviews by asking the guest, is there anything you've seen recently that you thought was really great that maybe you could recommend to screenwriters? Anything HBO, Netflix, Hulu, anything you've seen maybe was a little under the radar?
Sure. Well, I recently rewatched a series that's on Amazon Prime at the moment called Arn Knight Templar. It's like a Crusader epic kind of TV series. It's actually Scandinavian, and I'd seen it previously in the form of a film, but I hadn't actually seen the full. I think it was originally a series, and it was kind of cut down into a film. So I was rewatching that recently, and yeah, I just really like. I think in terms of a Crusader piece, like there's something really exciting about that genre and the kind of knights and also kind of all the kind of corruption and stuff that goes on in that kind of world. But I think that they did this really well, and it doesn't have the kind of, I guess it doesn't have the glossiness of like a Hollywood movie because it's from Scandinavia. It kind of has a slight more realism to it, which I really like, and I think just it's some great characters and a great story. So I would definitely recommend that.
Perfect. And what's that called again?
Arn, Arn, Knight Templar.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's a great recommendation. I have not heard of that, so I'll check it out. How can people see Jessie and the Elf Boy? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like for your film?
Yeah, it's already out, actually. It's out now on all the kind of main platforms, so iTunes and Amazon, Google Play, YouTube. So you can rent it or download it on those platforms. Yeah, it's available now.
Perfect. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I'll grab for the show notes.
Sure, yeah. So I'm on Twitter at Phil_Todd. And there's also my production company is Fellowship Film. So we have a website, fellowshipfilm.com. Okay. We're also on Facebook, just Fellowship Film, and also Twitter at Fellowship Film as well.
Okay. Perfect. I will round all those up for the show notes. Philip, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. Good luck with this film and good luck with all your future films as well.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Hey, thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Cheers. Bye.
SYS's From Concept to Completion screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. So just a quick touch on something Philip said in the interview I thought was so insightful when when he sort of made the point that using this old myth that had been around for, decades, if not hundreds of years, potentially thousands of years, there's something in this story that speaks to the human condition. There's some sort of primal interest that, people have in a story like this. And I think that's so smart and so insightful that, it can potentially give your screenplay a leg up. And again, he's not writing a period piece. He's not, retelling this myth in a old timey type of a way. He's brought it into the present day and made it sort of a present day myth. But there is something sort of primal about this myth. It's been around for many years. It's resonated with people. So I think it's something that can kind of ground screenplays. I think it's always good to kind of think about what is that sort of primal force, that primal interest that people might have in your story. And myths, fables, things like this that have been popular for many, many, many years, that is baked into it. And it's not always clear exactly what that is, but grounding your story in something that will speak to people is probably not a bad idea. Anyways, on the next episode of the podcast, as I mentioned, I am going to try and have on this screenwriter who got a writing gig through the contest. So hopefully we'll have her on next week. But I haven't recorded the interview, so I can't promise that, but hopefully. Anyways, that's our show. Thank you for listening.